Alright, request rundown part 2, let's do it. 4 Years Strong, Brain Pain. I've heard of 4 Years Strong, but I can't say I've actually ever checked them out. They are one of those bands that gets recommended to me from time to time, but I've never gotten around to them because, well, I mean, people, I get hundreds of bands recommended to me, like, a day's only got 24 hours, people. I can't spend them all listening to music. Gotta fit in the wank somewhere. But no, seriously, 4 Years Strong have, ironically, been at it for about 19 years now, and this marks their 7th full-length record. I kinda hate it when I go into these legacy acts on a really super late portion of their catalog because it's like walking into a party super late, you know? You don't have the proper context for everything that's going on or what the atmosphere there might be like, and sometimes you find out that you're walking into a party right as it's about to wind up, or even worse, go south. But I like to use albums like this as kind of a litmus test, you know? While I certainly don't have the expert's point of view walking into this, or any album really, I mean, I'm not an expert at anything, people, at all. Maybe wanking. My test with albums like this one, as I've said many times before, is does hearing this record make me want to hear more from them? And the answer with 4 Years Strong, I gotta be honest with you here, is hell yes, dude. God damn it. I should have been into these guys like fucking ages ago. I gotta get out more, man. I'm not going to enough parties. 4 Years Strong is another one of those pop-punk bands that has a distinct metalcore edge to them. Bands like, you know, The Wonder Years, Boston Manor, or even A Day to Remember, it's in that kind of general vein. It's extremely poppy, very hook-driven, with huge, shouting, soaring choruses, but the guitars and beats are so heavy and distorted that the breakdowns and mood are just as much savage as they are sweet. I've heard bands like this referred to as easycore. Get it? Because hardcore, except not derp. But you know, I'd say these guys are a prime, definitive example of what that genre entails and what it can sound like when it's firing on all cylinders. This record is an absolutely infectious little bop. The chugging guitar work on the opener, it's cool, grows and grows and grows, building up this immense sense of sonic pressure and anticipation, crescendoing and crescendoing until that finally gets released like a dam bursting upon those opening verses. The pulverizing drum work and Get Out of My Head keeps that momentum flowing strong into tracks like Crazy Pills and Talking Myself in Circles, in which that track in particular, the bass, ooh, it's brought right to the front and it's mixed in a very fuzzed out, very just blaring kind of way. It's hairy as fuck, and I love it. Can I just say that the mix on this record is absolutely stellar while we're at it? Every element is crisp and potent. Every instrument has a distinct presence without any one element drowning out the other. And on music where the general goal is to be as loud and as forceful as possible, that is not an easy task, but man, everything on this album just sounds great. The bass thuds monstrously, guitars are crunchy and growling, the vocal harmonies and screams between vocalists Alan Day and Dan O'Connor are very sweet and a little scratchy when they have to be. They're nothing outstandingly special, but the mix and the way that they harmonize together, oh god, it just makes them sound fantastic. And the drums, ooh. Jake Masuko stands out the most on this record. Pretty much every track features something flashy and bold from him, like the heavier stuff on those opening tracks, to the moments where the album slows down, like on Be Good When I'm Gone and Young and Heart. Overall, just a great performance out of this guy. The percussion on this is extremely good, and this guy is extremely talented. And you know, I hate to full-blown admit it, but the more I kept spinning this album, the more I just kept thinking to myself, whew, boy, if only the latest A Day to Remember single sounded this good. Right? Like, Seriously, what the fuck is going on with that new A Day to Remember record? Is this gonna hurt? Yeah, I guess that's one way you could put it. If the new ADTR album, oh, fingers crossed, knock on wood, please don't happen, does end up stinking up the place, I say keep this album in your back pocket. It'll be good to have on hand if that album, well, turns out to be wank. Brain Pain gets 4.5 Excedrins out of 5. American Television, no, not that television. This is a new band making their debut here with Watch It Burn. This is a 4-piece outfit out of DC, and they're making basically just straightforward punk-ass punk rock. You know, this is one of those albums where if I wanted to, I could pretty much just end the review right here. I mean, what you see is what you get with this album. This is punk. It's not pop punk or post-punk or metalcore or any kind of other offshoot or deviation or rebranding or reimagining. No, this is vanilla, straight up, no chaser, punk rock. And that's like it. It's just a punk record. It's not much more I can say. I'm not very good at this, am I? This is the kind of no-nonsense punk rock that, while it does little to nothing to reinvent the wheel, I still have a sincere appreciation for it. And I'm joking a bit when I say this is just like vanilla punk. What it is punk that's very reminiscent of the 90s skate punk wave that flew into the scene with acts like NoFX, Pennywise, and like the early 90s outings from like The Offspring and Bad Religion. It's high speed, high energy, with loud, shouty vocals and broad lyrical themes tackling rebellion and the ills of authority. If you're like between 25 and 40 and someone tells you to think of punk, something that sounds like this is probably exactly what plays in your head. And you know, I mean, I'm a 35-year-old punk rock poser. I'm not ashamed to admit that, you know, I still kind of fuck with this. While it does have that kind of 90s punk aesthetic to it, the band that this group really seems to be drawing the most inspiration from has to be Descendants. Like, this is a Descendants as Hell style record. The riffs are insanely punchy, but also very simplistic. The guitars and overall tempos are highly kinetic and rarely, if ever, pull off from the gas, and the lyrics are equal parts sincere disillusionment, snarky sarcasm, and even the occasional sentimental reflection, particularly on punk rock itself and the scene in general. Honestly, I loved the second to last track, Misprint, a song that's basically just a great big old excuse to rattle off a bunch of obscure punk rock references that, well, again, only aging, hopeless posers like me are probably gonna pick up, but hey, I appreciated it. Speaking as someone for whom Greg Graffin was also my priest, yes, I can vibe with Father Graffin. This is the kind of thing that will appeal to people out there already into punk rock, or maybe even people that are curious about the genre. It's competently played, competently mixed, and you know, it's got enough charm for me to give it a loose recommendation to you lot, at least. Like, if this is something you're potentially curious about, or if punk is just your thing, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's almost utilitarian in how fine it is, you know? It delivers some punk rock that gets the job done and basically does absolutely nothing else. There is a part of me that really doesn't want to take points off for that necessarily. I mean, this is a pretty simple, basic punk album. It does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a punk bop, and it's not really trying to be much more than that, but while it's proficient, my god, this thing is just not special. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's well played, it's decently arranged, and the guys aren't untalented by any means. I've certainly heard way worse punk bands get way more successful. There's definitely an initial spark here, but man, does this album lack oomph. It lacks any kind of wow factor. The record really doesn't do too much to set itself apart from any other punk release of its type. If you want to hear some good stuff that sounds like 90s punk, I mean, you could always break out your old No Use for a Name records, or dig up your PlayStation 2 and bust out Tony Hawk. Hell, a lot of these 90s punk bands are still out there doing their thing, so... don't get me wrong, the talent is definitely here. These guys are very talented, but the ingenuity and the personality just isn't. It's pretty good stuff for the people that will appreciate this niche and have room for something like this in their listening logs. But most folks outside of it, or people who don't know their Millen Collins from their Lagwagons, there's really not much here for you. Again, this is a new band though. This is a debut record. They still have plenty of room to grow and develop, and from what I've heard on here, there's no reason why they couldn't build something off from this. It's still good for what it is, but what it is may not be for everyone. I can still give it a loose recommendation. Watch It Burn gets 3.5 cameos on Jackass out of 5. British Lion? Why does that sound familiar? Oh wait, this is that Steve Harris solo project, isn't it? Ooh, yeah. Dude, I'm excited to hear this. What do we got? Ooh. So yeah, British Lion. Way back in 2012, Steve Harris from Iron Maiden released a little solo project under his own name, originally titled British Lion. And now 8 years on, he's decided to rename the group itself to British Lion and release a second album of material here in The Burning. That's not confusing at all. Okay, first things first, people. Y'all know I fuck with Maiden, right? I fuck hard with Maiden. They are one of my favorite bands out there. One of these days, I'm sure I will get around to doing a how to get into Iron Maiden someday. It's just, good God, that one might be even longer than Rush. Help me. But yeah, it's no secret, man. I love me some Maiden, and one of the reasons I love Maiden so much is the galloping and colorful bass work from Harris himself. Man, he shines on pretty much every single Maiden record, even some of the bad ones. Like, even when the band isn't great, Harris usually still shines through. The man has so much goddamn raw talent. Steve might be their most talented member overall, and I do not say that lightly. He's definitely one of my all-time personal favorite bassists out there. The dude just makes that 4-string sing, man. So when this got requested, I was initially really excited. Man, it's always good to hear Steve Harris out there, right? Until I sat down and tried to remember, what was the first British Lion record like? I mean, if I can be real, I remember being fairly underwhelmed with Harris's first record all the way back in 2012, and listening to this album 8 years later, ooh man, they have not really improved much. I mean, people, I'm sorry, but I just gotta be frank with you on this one. This record is not very good. I mean, Steve's good on it. At least Steve is good on it. Steve's great on this record, actually. Steve's always great. His lines are robust and clanky in that typical Steve Harris manner you've come to expect after all these years. He colors every song with terrific melodies and flow. I mean, if absolutely nothing else, I can say that Steve still shines on this album. The dude has not weathered with age, and that's always great to see. The bass lines are easily the best part of this record. And hey, if all you need to get through an album is some good thumpy Steve Harris style low ending, some good clang clang clang, this will do the trick. Steve Harris is great, but people, Steve Harris alone does not a good metal album make, and whoo boy, the other guys on this record, every other instrument, God, it sounds like they're just barely holding it all together. The guitar work is Not incompetent, but my god, does it lack flash, color, or decent riffage. Hell, this is some of the most forgettable lead work I've heard on a record all year. And again, considering that we usually hear Steve next to this, yeah, that's a problem. The drums are extremely basic and boilerplate. Again, it has the same problem as the guitars in that they're serviceable, they're basic, they have no real panache or energy, they're just there. You gotta have a beat, so here's some drums, nothing special. But you know, at least I can say that the instrumentation outside of Steve is okay, if not just crazy boring and uninteresting. It's bland, if not a train wreck. Richard Taylor, their vocalist, holy shit, where did they find this guy? This guy's voice is just so stiff and inflexible, and I swear to God, in a few places, he's just full-blown off key. The dude just can't sing the melodies that have been written here. He's like legitimately bad. Like, this is karaoke level shit. Like, if the other guys in the band are plain white toast, this guy is moldy plain white toast. What the fuck? And you know, I'll admit, maybe it's not fair to keep comparing these guys to Maiden, just like it wasn't fair for me to do that with the Raven Age last year, for example. But when these, how else can I put this? Celebrity-focused acts come around, I always ask myself the same question with each one of them. If the noted personality in question wasn't a part of this group, would anybody care? And this band? Man, if Steve Harris wasn't in this band, they would have trouble booking a Buffalo Wild Wings, let alone a concert arena. People, I guess, if nothing else, this record is a testament to the true talent of Steve Harris. Like I said up top, even when the album is bad, at least Steve Harris is good, but just as a whole, man, this is rough. This is rougher than it has any right to be, people. The Burning gets 2 karaoke nights out of 5. Oh god. Oh no. Okay, just fair warning, people. I'm probably gonna mispronounce like everything about this record, but here we go. Let's give it a try anyway. Naiv is the latest record from one-man Hungarian metal outfit, the Catafalque, that was released back in January. Please don't kill me, Hungary, I'm trying my best. But yeah, thy Catafalque. What is thy Catafalque? Oh boy. This is another one of those acts that's somewhat like WOZA Collective in the last video. They're just hard to define, just really hard. It's next to impossible to stick any one genre to this act. They are definitely a metal act, I will say that much. All of the necessary aggression and distortion is here, but they also use a lot of echoey and haunting synth work, lots of reverb-heavy and crystalline clear guitar work, and occasionally some very harmonious vocal work that could put them in more of like a post-punk kind of vein. But then on top of that, there's like this darkness and ominous and heavy as fuck sound, especially to the screaming vocals, that makes it sound like a demon trying to drag you back to hell with it. That kind of puts it in like a dark folk, or perhaps even like a blackened folk kind of area, sort of. People, if I just call this avant-garde, will you get what I'm trying to reach for? Can I just call this avant-garde? This is avant-garde. I guess the best way to put it is that this record is adjacent to a lot of different genres. It's adjacent to black metal, it's adjacent to Hungarian folk, it's adjacent to European post-punk. It rubs off a little bit from a lot of different sources and utilizes so many different soundscapes and structures that it's just impossible to nail down. It's experimental music that wants to openly defy genre and be its own wholly unique thing. The instrumentation is wonderfully opulent and elegant in places, with everything from the basic guitars, drums, and bass setup to stuff like grand pianos, saxophone, various wind instruments, some very unique synth choices. But it's a record that has a certain set of goals to it, and I feel like it does accomplish everything that it sets out to do. Rather well, in fact. It's an album that is meant to feel moody and daunting and unsettling. It's not outright trying to frighten or intimidate or scare you, but the constant sense of foreboding and imminent dread that the music tries to instill in you is certainly easy to feel just in the music alone. The entire record is in Hungarian though, so I mean, I couldn't necessarily understand what they were saying, but I did run the lyrics through Google Translate to see what they were talking about. Unfortunately, I couldn't find them translated through an official source, but what Google came up with, at least, pretty much does match the tone and the theme they're going for here. It's spooky, it's dark, it's relentlessly sinister in its subtlety, and you know, I gotta admit, I dig it. It's kind of a shame that I don't speak Hungarian. I can't help but feel like I'd be able to take even more out of this album if I could understand what they were saying, but I'm sorry, me no speaky hungry. It's another record that's just really out there, very experimental, heavy but in like a weird folksy kind of way. I would almost recommend this for people who dug stuff like Seor or Heilung from last year. Again, that is not a direct comparison at all. These bands don't sound alike, but if you're the kind of person who doesn't mind something that demands a little bit more out of you, but does reward you for sinking deep into its vibe and getting into its groove, you know, if you want something that is a challenge that is going to reward you for settling in for it, yeah, I can recommend this. Always good to see music so outstanding that the music itself can stand on its own. Even for us dumb American idiots who don't understand the Hungry. Naiv gets 4 mispronunciations out of 5. I mean, look at the back of this album, people. Look at these song titles. My Yankee ass wouldn't have a prayer pronouncing this. Oh god, for real? Why did I put the hard to pronounce albums right next to each other? Oh, thank god, there's a pronunciation guide. Whew. Okay, fellas, real talk. Thank you. So, AEGES. Here's a band that's been around since around 2011, and they're on their 4th full release here with Drømmen. I can't say I was familiar with these guys up until this got requested, but you know, when I looked into it, there's a fairly solid lineup of people in this band. You could almost call it a supergroup of sorts, with members having previously been in bands like Pelican, Tusk, Unwritten Law, and even Seosin. Not anything to shake a stick at here, not a bad pedigree overall. So what kind of music are they making? Okay, let me see if I can sell you on this. It's like if Failure had the energy and hooks of a band like Queens of the Stone Age or Muse, with just a dash of Torch and a pinch, just like a pinch, the tiniest little whisper of Mastodon or Cave In. Are you in yet? Because let me spoil this one for you, you should get in on this one. This record has a sound that is just huge, thick, and absolutely chunky as fuck. These are some of the chunkiest riffs and beats I've heard all year. The instrumentation here is loud, heavy, and absolutely crushing with its intensity. It's a record that has a kind of wall of sound thing going for it that is just pulverizing. It's denser than lead pudding. It's got some extremely infectious grooves, like on the borderline psychedelic Blind and Dreaming, some full-blown ragers like A Room Full of Mirrors and Drifter, and man, just from start to finish, this album is just stomp, 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 stomp. Oh, the guitar work especially is very excellent on this record. The lead and solo work is absolute fire. It screams and wails and soars in so many cool directions. Bo Burchell, Kemble Waters, and Corey Clark just sing their axes off on this record. And speaking of singing, Walters and Clark's vocal work is also just absolute ear candy. The wall of sound the instruments are creating demands a very powerful performance out of the vocals to match up with it. And that's not necessarily an easy thing to do, but man, can these guys just absolutely wail. Their vocal harmonies work absolutely beautifully in tandem with one another. These guys have outstanding chemistry on the mic with one another, and ooh man, especially after having to sit through that British Lion album, I needed to hear some good singing. All of these wonderful performances are elevated even higher by the frankly gorgeous mix on this record. Holy shit, this record is mixed like a dream. It sounds great. I mean, not only is this record powerful, but it's crisp, fresh, and absolutely clean as a whistle from back to front. Ooh, like, I'll admit I'm not an expert when it comes to analyzing mixes by any means. I've never spent any time behind a mixing desk. I don't know the technical ins and outs of things, but I know what I like. And man, this album, ooh, this sounds pretty. Honestly, this record is just a fucking blast. My only real complaint about it is, well, it's crazy short. At only 7 tracks and a very lean 31 minutes, this record feels more like an EP than a full record, if I can be honest, but, you know, better to get in, wow people, and get the fuck out quick than to torturously pad out your album with a bunch of filler tracks or whatever. This is the kind of short record that is short in a good way. It leaves me wanting more, and it makes me want to keep coming back and keep spinning this record. I've come back to this record at least like 4 or 5 times since recording this review, and man, that is a hard thing to do, to make a short record that makes you want to come back for seconds as opposed to, you know, feeling ripped off. It's like, you know, you're coming back for seconds because, ooh, the first time was so fucking good, as opposed to coming back for seconds because I'm still fucking hungry. You call that a portion? Dude, fuck you. It's a small morsel, admittedly, maybe a little too small for some. This album might feel to some of you like it's ending right as it's about to get started, but even though it's a small morsel, people, this is a delicacy. This is still really good, and I'm so glad this got requested. This might have passed by you. Hell, it would have passed by me if someone hadn't requested this and brought it to my attention, but man, I don't mind saying it, people. Strong Album of the Year contender. It's almost more impressive that they were able to pack so much punch into such a little package, but man, it's there. I gotta admit, you should at least give it a try. Drømmen gets 4.5 fun-sized Snickers out of 5. But what did you think? Did you get a chance to spin any of these albums? Did they impress you? Did they not impress you? Feel free to let me know in the comments below. If you like what you see, feel free to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell while you're at it. And until next time, I'm Thompson. I'll see you in the next video.
Super special thanks to Madison. I love Madison.